progress or attempts. So this is something that isn't really addressed very much. Most people look at, diet, exercise, while those are important pieces, the stress piece is a huge under considered factor in our weight loss and things that can get in the way of weight loss. So I'm specifically speaking to high achieving women in midlife. Now there is different stressors for them, so that's why I'm specifically going to talk about them. So things that happen, in midlife for women, we typically have responsibilities for children. We may be doing the parenting sandwich, so we may have our children or our littles, and then we have our parents, and we are trying to parent both groups. So we're in this sandwich position. I recently found myself in this position this summer, with my dad being so sick, and being needing my help with logistics. So there also can be actual caregiving for your parents and your children. Usually in midlife, women find that they are in more high profile positions, maybe management, they have higher stress. Usually they have moved from frontline positions into managerial or project management. This is sort of a natural progression as our careers progress and we get more education. We tend to take on more responsibilities. So that's all sort of normal, but it means that we typically have higher stress, more responsibilities, and we are juggling multiple, balls in the air. Then we have running households. So running a household, I actually just saw a study recently that women, their roles at the home is the equivalent of 2.5 full-time jobs. Now, I don't know if, maybe you don't feel like that. I don't personally feel like it's 2.5 full-time jobs. It is definitely a lot of work, and I have worked really hard to balance that out with my family. But research says it's the equivalent of 2.5 full-time jobs. So that's kind of crazy. So we have more responsibilities. We have our littles and our parents. Our jobs are more usually managerial or higher profile. We have more people under us. We're running households. We may have grandchildren who, we're supporting parents and grandchildren and our children. And then we tend to move towards volunteering and taking on extracurricular activities. Now, I was going to look this up before, but I completely forgot about it. There's like a Freudian thing, I think it's Freud, that really digging deep into like my nursing psychology stuff, or it might have even just been university, about where women, there's a stage in life where we typically move to where we're giving back to the community. And I do see this. I do see that more women than men typically will take on, say, extracurricular or volunteer, or your children need you to, volunteer for their whatever it is. So we have all of these extra responsibilities as we get older. And it's not like they happen overnight. They just sort of insidiously add to our plate. Now, with high achieving women specifically, they are typically type A. So there tends to be a perfectionism to them. And usually they're very self-critical, all of which adds to their stress. Now, when we're talking about weight loss is sort of a funny duck, because on the one hand, it should be a really simple equation. Like the formula is, you need to eat less than you burn in a day. Seems pretty simple. Calories in versus calories out. But what we know is that it's not that simple. There's many factors that impact or impede our efforts. So let's talk about those. And stress is, like I said before, it is a huge factor that's often overlooked in the journey, in the weight loss journey. It's often sort of just not really considered, or sort of casually given consideration. It's really just not taken seriously. The other thing is that often we don't take stress management strategies very serious because they're kind of wooey. It's more tangible to, cook, meal prep, exercise. Those are more tangible than sort of like, okay, you're going to meditate for 5 minutes. You're like, is this even doing anything for me? So that's super normal to sort of poo-poo that. Does it actually work? And I'm going to explain why we need those wooey strategies in our weight loss journey, and in our tool belt or toolkit, however you want to say that. The reason is that those wooey strategies actually bring us out of the fight or flight or sympathetic. So sympathetic is turning on your nervous system. It's when your body thinks that you need to run away from a tiger. So it's going to, there's certain biological things that your body does to prepare to run away from that tiger. However, in the society that we live in, 99% of the time, we are not running away from a tiger. We just have, high stress jobs. We're very sedentary. Even just like our games, social media, TV, the shows that we watch are all very stressful. And I don't mean stressful in a negative way. I just mean stressful that they stimulate our flight or flight response. So that is a stress. Now, this is going to be some real talk and a hard truth. If this is a hard concept for you to accept, honestly, you need to get out of your own way. There is a reason that, professional sports teams, high-level executives pay thousands, probably millions of dollars on sports psychology, stress management, and mental training. And I'm going to give you an example at the very end how this is illustrated in a research study. So when we're talking about stress leads to high cortisol levels, which when we're running away from a tiger is like really good because it shunts blood away from our immune system, our digestive system. It releases sugar into our bloodstream for our muscles so we can run away from the tiger. Now, like I said, 99% of us are not running away from the tiger. We are sitting at a desk, sedentary, experiencing these high levels of stress, for days and days and months, and then years and years and years. So we're constantly in this fight or flight state. And what happens when we don't run away from the tiger, then our body takes that sugar from our bloodstream and lays it down as fat around our stomach. Now, when we have fat around our stomach, it puts extra stress on the organs behind the fat. So when you look at someone and you know that they have a high stress job, you can tell usually by where they carry their weight. If they carry their weight primarily around their middle, this is an indicator that they are in that fight or flight state consistently. Now, the other thing that being in the fight or flight or our sympathetic nervous system. So that's our fight or flight system. Like I said, it shunts blood away from our immune system. So we have decreased immune function. So this usually means that we're sick more often. It shunts blood, so removes blood from our digestive system. So oftentimes we are not, absorbing the nutrients that we need as well. We often have issues with digestion. Maybe that's constipation or diarrhea or, something, one or the other, or both, or, some sort of mixture of both. Now, when we are in rest and digest, that is when repair, release of hormones, cell growth, cell and tissue repair, like from the gym and stuff like that, is all impaired because our body but sort of deprioritizes those actions because it's trying to prepare to run away from the tiger. When we have chronically high stress, it impairs our sleep cycle because we can never get into that rest and digest, which is literally what it's for. So our heart rate takes a long time to come down, and we have trouble falling into that deep, restful sleep because we're in this sympathetic, stimulated state. Now, when we have impaired sleep, so it's a vicious cycle. When we have impaired sleep, we have emotional fatigue. We aren't as good at regulating our emotions. This usually leads to eating things that you don't want to eat, can lead to binging, can lead to using food as an emotional crutch because you just don't have the energy to deal with whatever is going on emotionally. It can lead to mental fog, decreased decision-making abilities, and decreased willpower. We also feel more hungry when we have impaired sleep. So you might be overeating or, if you're in a calorie deficit for weight loss, but you're feeling all hungry all the time, maybe it's just a small calorie deficit, but because your sleep is impaired and you're feeling hungry all the time, then you're actually eating over your deficit and not losing weight. The other piece is, so this is more of a physiological thing. When our cortisol is very high, we retain water and we actually break down muscle. So what happens is over time, we break down our muscle mass. So we actually are burning less calories per day because muscle is highly metabolic. So it means it needs lots of energy. And when we have lots of lean muscle on our frame, we have our metabolism is just clipping along. But when we lose that muscle mass, we burn less calories per day, which makes it more difficult to get into a calorie deficit, which makes it more difficult to lose weight. It also, I lost my notes here. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So this is a personal story from when I was in high school. I was in grade 12. And this is just illustrating this stress cycle and the physiological effects of it. When I was in grade 12, in a very short period of time, I had, I think it was 5 people close, some friends die. And it was really dramatic and very, very stressful. I was in grade 12. I was trying to, do my exams and finish and get ready for university. And I put on about 10 pounds in a very short period of time without, there was probably emotional eating that went on, but I was, fairly active. And so the 10 pounds wasn't matching what I was consuming. And I was just very puffy. I just had this very puffy look to me. And I didn't realize this at the time. It wasn't until later when I was in nursing and I learned about the stress cycle that I realized that the reason that I looked like that was because of high cortisol levels and my stress levels. Now, once the stress sort of dissipated, I can't remember, it was around maybe 6 months later, I actually lost all the weight. And then in a few weeks, and I actually lost 5 pounds, 5 extra pounds. And what had happened was that 10 pounds was water weight. I was just retaining water because of hormonal changes that were going on because of my high stress levels. Now, because my stress levels were so high, my body was breaking down my muscle. And so I actually lost about 5 pounds of muscle as well. So once the water weight shifted off, I actually was lighter because I had lost this muscle as well. And I didn't know it during the time because, I was in grade 12 and I didn't lift weights. I didn't prioritize protein. I didn't really understand those concepts. Now, let's talk about strategies to manage stress. I don't ever look at eliminating stress. That's completely unrealistic and silly. We're always going to have stress, and stress isn't bad. The point is that we want to have a flexible nervous system that we can move from fight or flight when we need it because it's good, we need it, and then to also move to rest and digest to promote, good sleep, good digestion, good immune function. And that's when our gains are made. Like, honestly, you break your muscles down or cause micro tearing in the gym, and it's at night when you're sleeping that your body, if it's in that rest and digest state, can release the hormones and do cell repair, and all the gains are made essentially. So like I said, we're never going to eliminate stress. That's completely unrealistic. Stress, we need it. And we need a flexible nervous system. So what we want to do is actually manage stress better. So first, we're going to look at what are the areas of stress? What is causing us the most stress? And we want to prioritize, or sort of, we want to grade it. So what is causing us the most stress, what's sort of in the middle, and then what is our least stressful. And now I personally like to address what's causing us the most stress. Sometimes people like to, they don't feel like they can do that yet, and that's okay. You can look at sort of those mid-level stressors, and maybe you can address some of those if you don't feel ready to address that higher, really hot, like the most stressful thing. So identify the areas of stress, and then continuing to or adding in coping mechanisms. So, exercise is a great one. Either starting an exercise plan or continuing one. You might have to modify it to, what's going on in your life. If you have a high level of stress in your life, doing things like CrossFit, F45, HIIT are going to increase your stress and put more stress on your body in a negative way. If you are constantly crushing yourself in workouts, dying, laying on the floor, dying, that is stress that's similar to that fight or flight stress. And it actually is probably making your cortisol levels worse and quote unquote burnout worse. Now looking at strategies or exercise that is going to promote muscle building. It's going to promote those release of endorphins, sustainable cardio. That's more, it's not producing those high levels of stress hormone. So we still want to work out, but we want to be smart about it. And we don't need to, or You don't need to kill yourself every workout. It doesn't have to be a max effort every single time. That's just adding negative stress to your body and your life. Now, looking at fueling your body, so whole, fresh foods more often, because when we have whole, fresh foods, there's lots of micronutrients, the things that our body needs so that we're not in a, nutrient deficit. The next thing, so these are the kind of wooey, I call them wooey strategies. Meditation. Meditation, like I said at the very beginning, there is a reason that sports teams and high-powered execs do these things, and that they pay a lot of money for these strategies. It's not a secret, like they're all over the internet. It's just you wrapping your brain around the idea that these wooey concepts are maybe what's keeping you from reaching your weight loss goals. So meditation, lots of great apps out there, helps calm your mind, helps calm your body. This was something that I implemented a few years ago, and I literally took a year, pretty much a full year of doing it before I actually liked it. I could only do really short ones, 3 to 5 minutes for a really long time. I'm thinking 6+ months. So until you have done over a year of meditating, don't come to me and say that it doesn't work. Because the number one thing I see people doing is they try it once, or maybe they try it 6 times or whatever, or for a month, and then they're like, yeah, that didn't work for me. Well, did it not work, or did you just give up? So until you do it for a freaking long time, because our brain doesn't change very quickly, it's really friggin' slow, and we have to keep practicing things, especially things like meditation, for a long time before we see the result. And if we have a short-term focus, of course it's going to seem like it doesn't work. We have to be shifting that focus from 3 months to 12 years. Because your stress is never going to be gone. It's never going to go away. You're going to, at some point, have to learn how to deal with your stress better. That's just reality. So, meditation. Next one, breath work. I personally really like box breathing. So that's breathe in for 4, hold. I usually do 7. So I hold my breath for 7, and then a 7 count. And then I blow out for an 8 count. And I do this for a minimum of 2 minutes. If you use the app Calm, it actually has a little timer to help you stick to those amounts. There's lots of breath work. You could Google, YouTube them, Calm, Spotify. There is Headspace. I don't like Headspace as much, but there is tons of different breath work. Pinterest, you can find some. They're all over the internet. Next, we're in journaling. So journaling helps prevent ruminating. So this is when we think about things and we process, or we're sort of get stuck on them, and we think about that thing that our relative said to us on Christmas Day, and we just think about it and super analyze it and get ourselves all worked up about it. So this is called ruminating. Journaling is a great way to get that out of your head. It's also a great way to reflect on, your beliefs, your values, your childhood conditioning. Now, all of these things play a part in our beliefs about food, our behaviors around food, our beliefs about ourselves. And sometimes these are unconscious. Sometimes we don't even know that we have these beliefs. And, if your parents taught you that, women only can have salads and they can never have desserts, Well, you likely grew up believing the same things, and whether you know it, so consciously know it or not, is journaling can help you realize those sort of unconscious beliefs. And diet culture, lots of us are still recovering from the Kate Moss era, where we had to, look like Kate Moss, and you weren't allowed to enjoy food. So journaling can help us identify those roadblocks and beliefs that aren't serving us. And a lot of our beliefs and values are actually, not true. We think that they're true because they're in our mind, but once you write them down, you're like, holy shit, doesn't even make sense. So it's a really useful tool for helping identify your own roadblocks. Now, another one is called grounding. Now, this one sounds kind of hokey, but this is literally like going outside, taking your shoes off, putting your feet on the ground and just feeling the ground and being in the present moment. We tend to always be thinking about the future or ruminating about the past, and just being in the present moment. Like I said, this is a practice that is to help bring you back to the present moment, help calm you down. You just focus on the ground, feeling the ground, and then your senses. So if you're feeling really overwhelmed, this is a great strategy. You can even do it in your chair. You just close your eyes and, focus on your senses. What can you feel? What can you hear? What can you smell? All those sort of things are forcing you back into that moment. Now, this one is a long-term strategy for stress. When we have a lot of stress and we're a high achiever, sometimes it's because we have porous or weak boundaries or poor boundaries. And I'm sorry to say, but people will treat you how you allow them to. That's just the way it is. They will treat you how you allow them to. And if you have resentment towards your family, your work, or whatever it is, resentment is a clear sign of weak or poor or porous boundaries. And that, is something that you would need to look at. You would need to look at what areas of your life you have poor boundaries, because most often, if we have poor boundaries, this is a skill that we haven't learned from our parents, and we have to, look at the areas of our lives where we need to improve our boundaries. And then finally, just how you view stress. If you view it as a negative thing, then it's going to have a negative impact on you. If you view it as, neutral or positive, then it's going to positively impact you. And I know that sounds sort of like, I don't know what the word is, hokey maybe, but I want to leave with this example, the milkshake example. Now, this is, I think it's Leah Crum who was the researcher. Now, this is just talking about the power of belief and the power of our mind to physically affect our bodies. So the study was that participants were given two milkshakes on two separate occasions. They both had 380 calories. However, the participants were told that one of the milkshakes was 620 calories and an indulgent shake, and the other one was 140 sensible milkshake. And then the blood tests were taken before, during, and after their consumption of the milkshakes. Now, what they found is that the mindset of the indulgence produced a dramatically steeper decline in ghrelin. So ghrelin is our hunger hormone. So they felt more satiated because their hunger hormone went down when they believed they were drinking the higher calorie / indulgent milkshake. The thing was, the milkshakes were exactly the same. So if it was purely physiological, then we would expect your hunger hormone to have the same response despite what you're told about the milkshake, because they were literally the exact same. Now, what this tells us is that there is a psychological component to the physiological. So our brain has a direct effect on how our body responds to food. So this is just highlighting what you believe, your body believes. Not what your body tells you, you believe. There can be that, but in this example, this is all about our belief and how it physically affects our body. Okay, that's all I have today. That was a little bit longer than I had planned on going. But I hope that covered all the things about why stress can be blocking you from losing weight. Now, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. I'm going to post this on my Facebook page, and I hope that you got value from this. Have a great day. Oh, now I can't turn it off. Let's go. There we go.